Live from the Partners Neighborhood Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Huntsville, Alabama.
What time is it?
What time is it?
What time is it?
What time is it? What time is it?
It's tea time with Tierra, darling, where we are spilling the tea.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7. Today I'd like to talk to you for just a minute about something that I've been thinking about, a fear that I have of my own. And sometimes when you see the tiara with all the makeup and hair, it's a facade, it's a caricature. And today I want to let you know that I'm sitting here talking to you with no extra hair on and no extra makeup. And I want you to know that this has been a fear of mine. I've been afraid to expose myself to the world of videoing. And it's been really reckless for me until recently, and I accepted the fact that this is who I am, and I'm so glad that all you participated in watching our show, and I thank you for being patient with me, and I thank you for loving me for who I am and always supporting who I am. So thank you so much. We'll be right back now, so stay tuned. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're still in episode 7. Today I have a very special guest, Tommy and Stan. They've been together for 20 years as of July 28th. Wow. So tell me a little bit about how y'all met. That's what I wanted to know.
Well, let Tommy start that off because he and a friend of ours, Tracy Hill, you know Tracy. He and Tracy actually started this process 20 years ago. So I'm going to hand it off to Tommy and let him tell how we got started.
Okay. Well, as you know, he mentioned Tracy. Tracy was my roommate at the time, and we were actually on our way to Huntsville one night to the bar, the Vucaray, actually, to see a show. Actually, you were probably in it. And we actually got there. We walked in the door, and I noticed Stan was actually standing there. And I told Tracy, I said, this may sound crazy. I said, but that guy right there is going to be my next partner. And Tracy said, well, okay, that sounds good to me. So I said, I want to meet this guy. Well, a mutual friend of ours was a bartender at the Vucaray. And he told me that he would introduce me to Stan. And Tim Adams. He did a show here last week at Partners. Tana McKenzie. And so Tana McKenzie actually brought him over to me and introduced him to me. And
let me back up.
Here we are 20 years later, but Stan would have to tell you the rest of the story as far as what he felt and what he thought as we were introduced, by Tim Adams.
Tim came over to me and he said, Stan, I have a mutual friend that wants to meet you. And I said, well, Tim, I'm not one that's eager to just meet somebody like that. I'd like to take that on my own. He said, oh, come on. I told him I'd introduce you. Whatever you do beyond that, it's your business. I promised him I'd introduce you. I said, well, okay. So we're walking across the stage at Vucaray, and I stopped him and I said, Tim, point him out to me because you've had a little bit to drink, and I might want to turn around and go back the other way. So he pointed out Tommy to me, and I stopped dead in my tracks, and I said, you have got to be kidding me, Tim. He said, why? I said, I've got kids that age. He said, what? I said, I've got kids that age. He said, grab me, and he said, come on, I promised I'd introduce you. He said, that's that. And the rest is history. The rest is history.
Wow. So that was 20 years ago at the Vucaray. Vucaray's got a lot of history to it, but a lot of history. Did y'all have a Brokeback Mountain experience?
No, not really. There was the huge age difference in us, 16 years. And I actually have a son that's 2 years younger than Tommy and a daughter that's 4 years younger than Tommy. So I had a problem with that. And I told Tommy, I said, I just didn't feel right about it. He was 19 at the time, and I was 35. And I had custody of my kids. I became a single parent at 23 years old with a 11-month-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old son. So they were first and foremost in my life. And here I am meeting Tommy, and so it felt strange to me. And the night we met, that very night, we sat out on the tailgate of his pickup truck till about 4:30 in the morning, talking about it. And I'll never forget, one of the last things he told me was, "I promise I act your age and you act mine." And 20 years later, 20 years later, he still acts my age and I act his. And I'm 55 and he's about to turn 40. So.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. So you had kids prior to you and Tommy. And so does that mean you were married before that?
I was married, and I fell in love with all the right reasons. The lady that I married was actually pregnant when we met. She was a friend of my middle brother's fiance, and she was always over at the house with him and his girlfriend, and I met her at that time. And when she became pregnant, she was like 17 years old, and she was ostracized from her family. And I felt sorry for her, and literally fell in love with her. And I told her, I said, you know, I will marry you, and this child will be mine. And so, you know, we did. We got married, and Justin, my son, was born as my son. It was for all the right reasons, but I knew from a very young age that I was suppressing something, I was hiding something that I thought would go away. Now, granted, this was back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and you want to be what everybody wants you to be. You want to do what everybody in your family and society expects you to do. I was big in church. I played the piano and the organ in church for many years. She sang gospel music. Her family was very gospel, which was ironic that they ostracized it at the time was needed the most. But I fell for her, and I fell in love with her. And our marriage failed for reasons totally unrelated to being gay. It failed. I got custody of our kids, full custody, and I knew immediately that I could not allow not only to my kids, but to myself from that point on. So I came out the following year, and I actually went to my pastor, who's a doctor of theology and internations, and I told him the feelings that I was feeling and how could I live with that. You know, I'm gay. I know that. I've never been with another guy, but I know what I feel. And his exact words were, which lifted, felt like the world off my shoulders. I hardly believe our Lord is going to condemn your soul to hell for loving another human being. And you know, and that just puts you. I mean, and that was what 35 years ago. But I grabbed onto those words, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to live a lie to my kids. I'm not going to live a lie to myself. I'm not going to live a lie to my family, and I'm not going to live a lie to my God. And I grabbed the bull by the horns and went from there.
Okay, so you have 3 kids? 2 kids. Well, don't get me tickled. I know you. I know that feeling. I understand that. Okay, so you have 2 kids, and they were both by the same female, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so in raising those children after you came out, how did you explain to them that they had 2 daddies, not a mama and a daddy? Or I'm sure they still have a mama, but you know that your partner came into part.
It's not anything that I ever had to explain to them. I got in a relationship shortly thereafter. You probably remember it from the VU days. And it was not anything I ever had to explain. It was just there. And they were at ages to where they didn't have anything to compare it to. They didn't remember their mother. Their mother was not in their lives. My primary objective was to create a loving and stable environment at home. And granted, there are certain things you don't do in front of kids. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, or indifferent, you know. There's just certain things you don't do in front of kids. So we had our morals and our standards, and as long as I felt like we provided a loving and stable and godly home for those children, they were nurtured from that, and they did. And to this day, my son is 37, my daughter's 35, and they've never questioned it. They've always defended us. They've always defended the gay community. And I couldn't ask for it to have turned out any better. And I'll let Tommy elaborate on that. He comes from a very large family. That's part of what I fell in love with him is his family. They're like the Waltons on steroids. There's 5 of them, and mother and daddy, and I don't think there's ever been a divorce in this family. And I have very high beliefs in the institution of marriage. And I fell in love with his family immediately. And but I felt bad for Tommy. All of his brothers and sisters all had kids, and he was the only one that didn't. And then we started having grandchildren, and I'll let him take it from there.
Well, with Stan's kids, actually, that was actually the kids that I was never going to have. So when I came into the picture, they were already through the high school years. So they were in the teen years of their lives where they were partying and out running the streets and all of that.
But good kids.
They were good kids, but actually being not much difference in age with them and myself, it was easy for me to step in and actually give them advice and, let them know about the experiences that I had already experienced myself as a teenager, basically, and tried to lead them in the direction to not make the same mistakes that I made over the years growing up. And so they were good kids. I mean, they were typical kids, but they were actually looking for advice and actually looking for the way to do things the right way and not go down the wrong path. It's like me and Stan have always told them, it's a lot easier for you to bring them up to where you are is to let the friends that you have that's running the streets bring them down to where they are. And so we tried to make sure that they understood the difference between right and wrong and not get involved in things that they shouldn't be involved in. And so, I mean, it's been a journey for me coming into our relationship when we did, with his kids being half grown already. So it taught me a lot about what it was like raising kids, that I didn't have myself, but trying to make their lives better as they grew into adults and move forward with their lives.
Well, it kind of reminds me of when I was, when my nieces and nephew were born, as far as explaining. I didn't feel like I had to explain to my nephews and nieces about who I was. Although my story's a little different, I'm transgendered, they only knew Tierra. And so I recently had an encounter with them about trying to explain to a couple of them that I wasn't born as Tierra, that I became Tierra. They didn't understand it. But I'm trying to be authentic, and so I didn't want to make them believe anything that wasn't the truth. So they're at the age now where they can be influenced with honesty. So what my question is, there's a lot of kids that come into the bar that are our nieces and nephews, y'all's age, y'all's kids' age, and my nieces and nephews' age. What would you tell those young kids coming up? What advice could you give to them? I mean, I know you've got some advice, Granny. Well, they call me Mama, so. Peepaw and Teepaw. Okay, well, Peepaw, what advice could you give the young kids?
There's a lot of temptation out there today. A lot more than what we had when we were coming up, I guess. But there's a lot of temptation. And be careful who you hang out with. Like Tommy just said, one of the things I always told my son and daughter was, you know, what he just said. It's a whole lot easier for them to thugs to bring you down to where they're at than you to bring them up to where you're at. Now, that doesn't mean you give up on them. You know, if you can be a positive influence to anybody, then be that positive influence. But don't let someone's negative influence take over you. And so, you know, to the young generation now, it's dangerous out there. It is very dangerous. When you're searching for something, don't lose your soul, don't lose your morals, don't lose your standards to get it. Because if you got to do all that, then what have you achieved? Absolutely nothing. So stay true to yourself, but keep your morals and your standards and your faith there. And there's not anything out there that can't be attained if you want it hard enough, if you pray for it hard enough, and if you deserve it. You know, God will see whatever you need and want if you deserve it and if you're worthy of it.
Thank you. That's good. So it's so hard for me because I've been single for a long time, and but the reason I've been single is because I don't settle. I won't settle, and I choose not to be a hookup, nor will I be a experience for a person. So I'm single, and I'm okay with that. Now, I've met a few people, and I've dated a couple, you know, but it ain't been that long ago. But what do you think about people that are looking for people? What do you look for in a mate?
I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to let Tommy elaborate on it too. We have a very dear friend, and I'm not going to call out any names for him to defend himself now, but look for what's inside a person. We have friends, more than one, that look for the GQ model or look for the bathing suit from South Beach or the bathing body from South Beach, Miami. That's all superficial. Look for the inner beauty in oneself. Try to connect spiritually and emotionally rather than physically. Back when Tommy and I met, Tommy was not anything that I had ever been attracted to. You knew the person that I dated first and was in a 10-year relationship with. Tommy had none of those characteristics. But the night that we met, something connected emotionally and spiritually that to this day, 20 years later, I can't put my finger on and say what it was. But I think God led us to that moment at the same point in time. Our paths crossed, and I think that is something that everybody can have. The main thing is stop searching for something that's not real, that's not there. Because chances are, whatever you're needing or looking for or yearning for is right in front of you, or possibly beside you. And I'll let Tommy elaborate on that.
That's true. We do have friends that are single and that are looking for the right person for them. And just like Stan said, oftentimes those friends of ours are looking for people that how should I put it? Really aren't what they're looking for. My theory with us is opposites do attract, and I firmly believe that. Just because you think one person is not right for you, that person is probably the most right for you out of all of the people that you know. But like Stan said, everybody is always looking for, and I'm going to just be honest, it's the sexual attraction hookup. That's what people are looking for.
And that's the worst thing to look for.
And that is the worst thing to look for because I know that sexually there is an attraction to the partner that you want to choose or the person that you want to be with. But there's more to a person than their looks. You have to see past that. It's all about what's inside of them that makes their world go round and makes their clock tick. And, looks aren't everything. you know, sure, there's pretty people in the world. There's some not so attractive people in the world, but there's always somebody out there for everybody. But you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be true to yourself, and you have to be true to the person that you're actually seeking to, whether you're going to be dating them or whatever the circumstances may be. You have to take consideration their feelings, where they've been, where they want to go, exactly. You know, it's sometimes, you know, everybody says that picking a partner is a process. Well, it's not really a process. I mean, it's just it's being genuine with yourself and what you're looking for, and you don't settle for anything less than that. You know, some people, but there is a difference. I mean, either you're looking for a partner or a soulmate, or you're looking for a hookup. Which is it? There is a difference. And a lot of people are just into the hookups and things like that, you know, and those people most oftentimes, you know, go.
They get hurt by it.
Well, they don't get they do get hurt by it, but they also at the same time are they're looking for something that don't exist. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
It's what I've always looked for myself is someone that has the same ideas and the same goals and the same, you know, wants to go in the same direction that I always wanted to go. You know, it's easy to meet people and talk to people and get to know people. And usually within 2 or 3 conversations with someone, you know exactly where they're going. You know where you've been and where you want to go. So it's an easy choice to make if that person's going to be the right person for you or not. It's all based on where you want to go into your future. I mean, do you want someone you want to spend the rest of your life with someone that's going to share everything with you, to love you for who you are and what you are about, no matter what? Or are you just going to choose that person because they look good on your arm? You know what I mean? And a lot of people, I think, do pick and choose people that look good when they're out together and things like that, because they want other people, their friends, their peers, and everyone to see. Look who I've got. Look what I've got. But in all reality, what do you really have? So you have to pick and choose the people.
It's some soul searching.
And do some soul searching for the person that's right for you and what you're looking for.
Okay, so I know spirituality is big in my life, you know, because I know without God, I probably would be crumbled already somewhere in a corner, hiding under the darkest cloth. Has spirituality played a big part in your relationship together? So, do you mind speaking about that?
I don't mind at all, Tierra. As I said earlier, you know, I was big in the church when I was married. My wife was a gospel singer. Her family was. I played the piano and organ in church. Was very involved in it. After the divorce, I'm not going to say I backslid. I didn't go to church like I should. I still had the spiritual convictions and the conversations with God daily, nightly, whether it be in the backyard or sitting on the toilet, wherever. You know, I had my relationship with God. I had to have God's help raising my kids at 22 years old, 23 years old by myself. I thought I was the only guy, single parent in the world raising 2 babies by myself. Didn't know anyone else. I mean, I had no support system, and I actually took a job transfer down to Orlando. So it was me and 2 babies and God. That was it. I didn't have my mother. There was no one, but we made it. We made it. My faith was tested in the worst of ways when I lost my mother 12 years ago, about 12 years ago. Mother was everything to me. I have 3 brothers, a twin brother, a middle brother, and an older brother, and our father got killed in an accident when my twin and I were 6, the other one was 8, and the other one was 12. So Mother raised all 4 of us by herself. So she was my best friend, my confidant, and my role model. And there was nothing that I didn't share with my mother. She was just there. And she died suddenly of a heart attack, and I became mad at the world. I didn't want to be around Tommy. I didn't want to be around my kids. I withdrew from society. I withdrew from everything, and I literally nearly died. I curled up on the couch and nearly died. And that went on for close to a year, I guess, and Tommy and my kids tried to pull me out of it, and there was nothing that would bring me out of it. And Tommy ended up leaving me. He left me. And once he walked out on me, and the kids didn't want to come around me because I wasn't pleasant to be around, I woke up one day and I thought, I've got to change this. You know, I'm going to die. Mother's not here. She's not coming back. I've lost Tommy. The kids don't want to come around me. And I remember going outside, and I sat down in the backyard. It was at night. It's like midnight. And I said, God, pull me out of this. Get me out of this. Get Tommy back. Get my kids back. And get back my life. I'm sorry. It seems like the next day, the very next day, things were brighter. I got up. I started looking for Tommy. I needed him back. He didn't know if I was ready, and I had to convince him that I was, and that took a while. But I told him, I said, if I get you back, I'll never forsake you again, and I'll never forsake God again, because I did. And I asked my son and daughter for forgiveness, and shortly thereafter, it was announced our first grandchild, my son's first. And it's like God took my mother from me, but he's given me not something to replace her, but something to fill that void. And the following year, my daughter had her first. The following year, my son had his second. The following year, my daughter had her second. And I said, okay, y'all can quit, you know. 4 Christmases in a row, I had an extra grandchild. It's like, y'all going to keep us broke for the rest of my life. But God is good. God is good. 4 years after my mother passed away, I lost my twin brother in an automobile accident. 4 days before our birthday, and I promised Tommy then, because, I mean, I saw lights go off in his head, and I said, I promise you. I said, I learned from before. I have the strength to get through it. And it was a totally different loss, losing my identical twin, than my mother, but I knew how to deal with it. And the difference was I had to have God with me to pull me through it, because God was my strength. Tommy was my, what do you want to call it, my whipping post? Tommy was my backbone. Yeah, he really was. But God was my salvation, and I knew that I could get through it. And at the same time, I was taking care of a disabled brother by now. My oldest brother had a stroke, and I was taking care of him. So I needed God's strength to help me through that. He was the oldest, and my twin and I were the youngest. We weren't close growing up, but God brought us so close. And he accepted Tommy and I's relationship unconditionally, thought the world of Tommy. And, you know, Tommy was there with me, taking care of him for, I think 11 years before he passed. And then in between all this, Tommy's mother passed, which was like my mother after my mother passed. And then a couple years after that, his father passed. So between my mother, my twin brother, my oldest brother, and his mother, and his father, we've lost all of those in the 20 years that we've been together. There was no way we could have gotten through all of that without God's grace to comfort us and console us. There's no way. So back to my faith, you better believe it. God's with me every day, all the way. And Tommy, you can elaborate on that.
Our faith has definitely been tested in the last 20 years. With everything that we've had that has gone on, it has not been the greatest ride, but we've stuck it out. I've always had my faith in God until my mother passed away. I lost my faith because my mother was my best friend. She was my everything. And so I tried my best every day to just get up and go. And it was hard. It was very, very hard for me to do. My mother passed away in 2007, so she's been gone almost 7 years. It'll be 7 years in September. And up until this last year, I have started to find the strength to move forward. And make the best of every day when I wake up. I'll always love her. She will always be with me. I feel her presence with me all the time. And I know that she's proud of me no matter what. And what I have got with Stan. 20 years is a major accomplishment that I thought would never possibly happen to me, but it has, and I'm very thankful to God for that. But, I mean, as far as my faith being tested, yeah, it's been tested. And there are times that you feel like there is nowhere else to go. There's no one else to turn to. But you have to realize that with God, all things are possible. And with Stan by my side now, I know that I can move forward and go on with my life and carry on what my mother would have wanted me to do. I know Stan did mention to you that I did eventually leave him after his mother passed away. That was the first loss that we experienced in our 20 years together. But in that time of Stan's loss, you know, I was there for him and I comforted him, and, you know, I tried to be his rock and I tried to be everything to him that I could possibly be. But no one really realizes, some people probably do, if you have lost your mother, you know what it's like when that happens. Your entire world comes crashing down right before your eyes. And I tried to stick by Stan and try to, you know, be the foundation that he needed to keep him going and keep him motivated to keep going forward, even though he had suffered a great loss in his life. And it was tough. You know, I went through a time where Stan treated me like I was just a piece of trash. And I know that's sad to say, but that is the honest to God's truth.
I didn't want anybody around.
But I knew that he was. I knew that he was suffering, and I knew that it was a time that he, you know, in his life that he was going to have to find his own way at that point, because there was nothing I could do really other than be there for him every step of the way. He was going to have to find his own way to move forward. And so I gave it time, and I gave it time, and I gave it time, and I asked God to please help me with being patient and, you know, not try to read things that wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? And try to make up things just because I was the one that was feeling yeah, I guess the rejection part of it, and that was a lot of it. And one day I just finally realized. I said, Stan, you have got to do something with your life. You've got to pick up and carry on because it's not the end of the world. There is more to life than sitting here day in, day out, wasting away, worrying about what has already happened. You can't change that. You've got to pick up and move forward. And we would have good days and we would have bad days. And I finally just got to the point where I realized we were having more bad days than we were good days. And I told Stan, I said, I have got to do something for myself. I've got to move out because you're not only dragging yourself down, you're taking me down with you, and that's not where I want to go. I didn't want to go down the same road that he was going, even though I knew one day I would probably go through the same thing he was with my own mother. And which that was probably a very good thing for him, because when I did leave him, it made him realize that I did exist, and I was there for him, and I was trying to pick him up and carry him with me, but he just didn't want to go. So that was his wake-up call. And
in retrospect, that was the greatest thing he could have ever done for me.
And if I hadn't have done what I did, there's no telling what the outcome would be today at that time. So we did separate for 6 months, and we regrouped. We got our things together, and we made a vow that we would move forward together, and we would get through it. It may take the rest of our lives to get through it, but we'll get through it. And so that's what we did. We took a 6-month break from each other, and we lived in separate apartments, and we basically kind of started dating, I guess you could say, so to speak, all over again, and just tried to restart, and move forward with what we needed to do. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that is so touching. It's so good to hear that God is in the midst of your relationship, because a lot of gay people they just kind of turn their back, and don't realize what the strength in us can be through our higher power, And it's so good to hear that you talk about that movement. I really, really, really appreciate you mentioning that, because God is good all the time.
Were you aware that we had a Holy Union on our 30th anniversary, or 13th anniversary?
You mentioned that.
It's something we had talked about after we had worked things out, and we were back on, just everything was just great, And we started talking about having a Holy Union. And it was for no other reason than, our families accepted us unconditionally. Our children did. Our grandchildren did. But I wanted validation from God. So, the spiritual person that I'd always been, I needed that validation. And so we sat down and started planning it, and it was a process. So it was like 6 months in the planning. It was at our home out in the back. It was in the summer. Our anniversary is in July. And we had a pool party, luau wedding. And we call it a wedding. It was a Holy Union. With performed by an ordained minister. Tommy's sister,
Carol Landry.
Miss Carol Landry, wonderful lady, absolutely wonderful lady. Love you, Carol. But she met with us a couple of times prior to the event to get to know us a little bit about our past and our likes and dislikes and our personalities. Tommy's middle sister that he's very close with actually stood up with him, and my dear lifelong friend Darlene. You remember Darlene back from the days? She hung out with Bill League. Yeah. She lived in Atlanta by now, and she came from Atlanta and stood with me. And then we actually asked my son and daughter to give a dedication speech during our ceremony. And it was wonderful. It was one of the most touching events, probably the most touching event of our 20 years. It was just perfect. I mean, we had the reception. our friends and family. And I'm going to tell you something. When I talked about Tommy's family being like the Waltons on steroids, a lot of them are bikers, which are the best people in the world. Lawrence County, Tennessee, so we're talking like redneck capital of the world, just like Limestone County where I'm from. But we had these big, strong, strapping bikers, rednecks, squalling. They were coming out of that ceremony, every one of them, it just beat everybody down. But that's how emotional, and that's how it touched every single body there. And I thank Carol for that. She spoke words so eloquently that the only thing you could hear, and it was the sunset, the only thing you could hear was crickets in her voice. It was absolutely amazing, but every single person at that union was touched. And God's presence was everywhere, everywhere. Everybody felt it. Everybody felt it. It was absolutely amazing. So.
Well, I have completely not even asked Pete if he has any questions. So I guess this would be a good time. Pete, this is our co-host, Pete. We are microphone hogs, aren't we? Pete, you have any questions you'd like to ask?
What have we created over here? No, it's interesting. It's interesting because every question I've had, y'all have answered. So I think that's just really wonderful, because I was going to, everything you've asked, or that I was going to ask, you've really, answered. I think one of the things I was really thinking that really kind of touched me was when you were talking about the gay world, because this is really important to Tierra and I as far as like the perspective that everybody has, because I think one of the reasons that everybody's looking for that perfect mate is really because there's something we feel missing inside of ourselves. We're not accepting ourselves as full validated people. We think of ourselves as like, because I'm your age group, so I know exactly what you're talking about. It was a disease back when we were, I mean, not only was this horrible sin that you're going to be cast into the pits of hell, but it was actually a disease. So I
felt like I had to hide it because I didn't want the state or anybody else to take my kids away from me. So my kids were first and foremost. So did I hide it and live a double standard? Is that being true to myself, true to God? I mean, that was tough. That was tough. But believing in the institution of marriage like I do, I thought, well, the only thing I can do to make this right is to live my life with one person in a loving, stable Christian home environment, full of love, full of laughter for my kids, and now our grandkids and kids.
That's just beautiful. I do want to explain the reason we're testing a new system out, so we want to make sure we get the audio. That's why we're wearing two mics. We're doubling it today, so everybody, in case they're questioning what the heck is going on. So, but y'all have really touched me, and I want to tell you, both of you, that you're both beautiful individuals, and I'm very touched, and because to me a lot of times in the gay world, like you say, you're looking up at the body. I look at the eyes, and y'all have beautiful, beautiful eyes. Awesome. So I'm gonna hand it back over to our star.
Well, I really appreciate y'all being here today and being so honest and so open and willing to share your life with us just for a few minutes, because I think even in the length of time we've had here, people already are going to be changed, because there is hope. Because us as gay people think that we can't have that normal, quote unquote, life, and you two have set an example for us to be able to look forward to being able to have that.
Tierra, that's something that Tommy and I have always taken pride in, is maybe we can influence people in the gay community, that you can live a normal life. You can live a happy life. You can live an acceptable, even if you don't have the blood support from your own family, which so many of our friends don't. You can find that love in someone else that you can bond with and have that well, our hearts became one. So I don't know any other way to explain that. Our hearts became one. We became one. And if we can influence that or have that positive influence on anyone else's life, then we've done something. We've done something for, if it's just one person. But I hope it's a lot. I hope it's a lot, because it can happen. I mean, we're a testament right now, 20 years later, with all of the obstacles that we overcame. The speed bumps, you know what? You may have a flat tire and a blowout, but get the tire fixed and keep rolling. Keep rolling. because we've had our speed bumps and we've had our trials and tribulations, but we sit here right now sharing this with you, and it's an honor. It's an honor to be able to do that. And if that can have any impact on anybody, that you can do it too, then run with it, because it's out there. It's out there. Don't look for it. Just let it happen. Just let it happen.
Well, I can promise you that you are going to be an influence on people, because I get emails every week about our show, and this ain't gonna be the first one we don't get an email about. Okay? So thank you so much, and I love y'all, and I thank you so much for being a part of this. God bless you, and Tommy, I love you too.
I love you too.
Y'all be
always have.
and remember, y'all be good to each other. Y'all are just too good to each other. All right.
We have our moments. We have our moments.
The thing is, it's all about love, isn't it?
All about love.
So thank you so much.
You know what? I'm gonna say something else. When Tom,
Really?
yeah. Oh, and this will be short, but Tommy's mother told me about a month after we met, after I met his mother. We were sitting out one night laying on a blanket watching some meteor shower or something. We never saw one, but Tommy went in the house to go to the bathroom, and she said, "You know what, Stan? I knew the minute I met you, I would never have to worry about him the rest of my life." Well, when she was in the hospital 7 years ago, she called all 5 of her kids in, and Stan, not the other son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, but all 5 of her kids in, and Stan. And she was telling us that she was ready to go home. She knew her time was near, and she was ready to go home. And after she shared this with us, and we were walking out of the room, she looked at me and she went like this. And I went back into the room, and she said, "You remember what I told you sitting out on the driveway?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I said, "Either you'll never have a thing to worry about." I said, "You rest." I said, "I'll take care of Tommy. I promise you that." And she passed away the next day. So not only have I made the promise to Tommy, but I made that promise to Edith too. And Edith was the greatest mother-in-law anybody could ever have. So she needed that. She needed that before she left. She needed that before she left. And I made sure she had it. And she's got it, and she's with us now. She's with us now.
That's so beautiful. Thank you again. Oh my goodness, I'm so touched. Thank you so much. I really appreciate y'all being here, part of episode 7. This is Tommy and Stan's Hour. Y'all stay tuned for episode 8, because we're going to have another good old show coming up real soon. Y'all be kind to one another. Love you. Peace out.
All right, so it's after the show. What do you think?
Goodness. Oh, it's so encouraging to see 2 people been together for 20 years. They have a lot of advice to give.
Right.
And I was so happy to hear that they realized they couldn't make it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to realize that. We're not here alone. We have things around us supporting us.
Right.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, but I love that, like, Tommy was not afraid to stand up for his own self and be like, I can't handle this anymore, I need to leave. And that was exactly what Stan, I think, needed at that point, was kind of a little smack in the face, like,
Tough love.
Yeah, a little bit of tough
love. And I think that if we had more of that in life, we'd probably be better people.
Right.
People sometimes want to pat us and say, "You'll be okay." But in reality, it's like, or, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes, exactly.
Snap out of it.
Snap out of
That's
it,
what
sweetie.
Sounds like Cher, doesn't it?
Snap out of it.
That's what she'd say.
Yes. But it was a good show. I'm so glad that they were willing to open up for it.
They opened up so much, and that is just, so y'all feel really honored, because we feel honored about that. And I think another thing that they touched on that I guess I talked a little bit about is just, I think that one of the reasons we're so conscious as far as, like, looks and that type of thing in the gay world is because it's from our own self and from our own self-esteem issues.
And it is about self, and that's the thing. Sometimes we look for our partner for the things we're lacking.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think sometimes that also comes with judgment. We judge people for what we're lacking.
Right.
So somebody is looking good. Oh, heaven's busy. They're not all that. We put
Right.
them down, but we're human,
Right.
so it is a life experience, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So it's a good show, and I'm so honored.
Right.
So glad.
Right. And I have a feeling we're going to have 'em on again.
Oh,
What do you think?
yes. So for you out there, it is possible. 20 years is really amazing.
Right. Straight,
20 years.
gay, bisexual,
Oh, yes.
transgender, it don't matter.
Anybody
Don't
can
matter.
have it.
Everybody can be happy.
Yeah,
Just like
so-
we're happy.
Oh, we're so happy.
I love you, darling.
I love you. Mwah. Mwah. Thank
Bye,
you.
Z's.
Bye-bye.